Hi, I'm Chicky Linguini, and today I wanted to talk about glucose. I used to think glucose was something only diabetics really needed to focus on, but after learning and reading some books, one of them being The Glucose Revolution, I realized that that's not true at all. It's something that we should all be focusing on because it's something that we all use. So the truth is, glucose controls so much. It controls our weight, our extreme hunger cues, feeling agitated or hangry in between meals, me. Feeling like you need to eat every 3 hours, acne, inflammation, and other skin issues, PCOS, hormonal issues, missing periods, anxiety, mood disorder, depression, being cold frequently, as I wear a sweater in Miami in 90-degree weather, insulin resistance, energy crashes, brain fog, and needing caffeine throughout the day. So those are just some, and if any of those resonated with you, this video is going to be great. So I'm going to try to explain glucose and blood sugar and all of that in the simplest terms. Glucose is the main source of energy for the cells in our body. Glucose comes from plant sources, so anything that comes from nature. So that's fruits, vegetables, grains, nuts, seeds, legumes. The glucose in plants is well balanced, containing starch or sugars, which is basically both sugars once you eat it and it's digested in your body, and fiber. So they contain starch or sugar and fiber. Fiber is super important because it helps slow down the absorption of glucose. All processed foods also contain glucose. That's because our table sugar was once a beet and it was extracted of all of the sugar, leaving us with only the white goodness and discarding the rest. All processed foods contain sugar or grains, which again is just sugar once we eat it and it's digested in our body, because grains is starch and starch is sugar. So again, all processed foods contain sugar or grains, and they're all stripped from their fiber. And that's because fiber, when you remove the fiber from it, it keeps the shelf life longer for the processed foods. This is important to know because although we need glucose for our energy, for our cells, we're eating much more of it than our bodies were intended, and most of it is stripped from its natural fibers. I can't remember the exact stat, but in one of my classes, it was said, I believe 95% of Americans don't meet the dietary fiber guidelines. This is a huge problem because it puts our bodies into stress with so much glucose coming in without the adequate fiber to help balance. So when we eat, our pancreas produces a hormone called insulin. Insulin takes the glucose to the cells, and then the leftover glucose, once the cells have been energized, all the leftover glucose then needs to be stored. It needs to be rid of the body as soon as possible. The insulin takes it first to the liver and then to your muscles as fat. So basically, if you're eating too much processed foods and too much carbs, that's how it gets turned into fat. When we eat too much glucose and not enough fiber, the glucose needs to be stored after it's energized our cells, and it first gets stored into our liver, and that's why the fatty liver syndrome has gone so high up. Even though it's not because we're alcoholics, it's because we're eating so much processed foods and carbohydrates, and then it gets stored into our muscles as fat. So a glucose spike is when we eat too much glucose and our body needs to raise its glucose levels more than 30 milligrams. So here's a graph from the Glucose Revolution book by Jesse and Chape, and it's showing a week's worth of glucose spikes, and on the top you can see there's giant spikes, and on the bottom there's less spikes. So that's what we're going for. The book is amazing. Give her a follow on Instagram. She's at Glucose Goddess, and you can see a bunch of other graphs like that she's done with her own trial and errors of food. A spike can feel different for everybody, but some symptoms are fatigue, headache, nausea, heart palpitations, anxiety, stress, sweating, food cravings, and honestly anything else. Whenever I have a spike, I get very hangry. Everybody around me knows that. I get hangry, I need to eat something, and I'm irritable. I get a headache, and sometimes I'm even nauseous. An example, if you wanted to eat a bagel, if you were to eat a bagel alone, that will cause a big glucose spike. You're not eating anything with it, there's no fibers, no fat. But if you were to eat a bagel with 2 hard-boiled eggs and an avocado, that's something entirely different, and you won't have a glucose spike. One will leave you feeling hungry and unsatisfied and a whole mess of other symptoms because you had a giant glucose spike, and the other will leave you feeling satisfied and ready to go for the next 4 hours. This is because of fiber. Fiber slows down the absorption. This is a secret, and this is why some diets work and some diets fail. The key is fiber. And I know we all know that eating our vegetables is good, but this is why it's so good. Not only does it have all of the nutrients and vitamins and minerals and folate, but it has fiber, and fiber slows down the absorption of the starches and the sugars in our foods. So naturally, diets that lower your glucose spikes by incorporating veggies in your day and having, protein, fat, and small amount of carbs, you'll work and it'll be successful because you're not having the glucose spikes. And the glucose spikes, remember, is what's causing you to store fat. So if you're storing fat, there's no way you can be losing weight. So now that we have some sort of understanding of what glucose is and why fiber is just the beauty queen of all queens, I wanted to explain my favorite tangible hack from the book that I was just mentioning, The Glucose Revolution, and that's to eat veggies first. So we just went over why and how fiber is so amazing. But what if I told you you can eat the same exact meal with the same exact calories, and one will leave you with a glucose spike and the other will not? And again, a glucose spike is storing fat. The order in which you eat your food is just as important as what you eat. The order is veggies, protein and fat, and then carbs. And it doesn't have to be after like a few minutes or anything. It's literally just eat your veggies first, then your protein and fat, and then your carbs. And granted, there are some meals that you can't separate it, like spaghetti bolognese, for example, my favorite. You don't have to sit there and separate the meat, or like paella. As long as you're eating veggies first, like a side salad first, or some arugula, that's a salad. I'm obsessed with it lately. An arugula salad, or a broccoli, some Brussels sprouts, any type of veggie first, and then your meal, you will have a less glucose spike. Sometimes that gets challenging when going to a restaurant. So something that you can do is eat a salad before leaving, and then you can go to the restaurant, and at least you'll have the peace of mind knowing that you have the fibers in your stomach working to slow down the absorption and to make that mesh. It makes like a little mesh inside your intestines so that the carbs and the sugars take longer to go and it won't directly go into your intestine. I've been really focusing on that hack here at the house. We, like I said, eat an arugula salad, my husband and I, with Parmesan cheese and lemon. It's literally those 4 ingredients. Oh, and olive oil, and it's amazing. And we'll eat that before our lunch or dinner. Or like I said, some Brussels sprouts. I love Brussels sprouts. Or broccoli, any greens. And I've been really focusing on eating that before. Like I said, lunch and dinner especially. And with breakfast, I try to have just in the order. So if I do have a vegetable, I'll eat it first. If not, I'll just have protein. I'll really have a good amount of protein first, and then I'll have my hash brown. So eggs and hash brown. And it's been working great. I do feel like I'm going longer without needing a snack. I am feeling less of my hangry self with just adding that simple hack. And I love it because it's not changing anything at all. It's not changing what I'm eating. It's literally just making sure that I eat the vegetable first. So to wrap up Glucose is needed for our cells and for energy, but too much glucose without fiber will cause a spike, and spikes turn into stored fat. And a whole other mess of other things that I definitely am going to go over in another video, but we're just emphasizing on the fat today. We should aim not to spike 30 milligrams over our resting glucose. Fiber is the #1 super green beauty queen, and eating it before a meal is going to help with a lower glucose spike. The best order to eat your food when possible is veggies first, protein and fat, and then carbs, and then dessert, anything sweet after. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it, and subscribe. New videos every Thursday.